There comes a moment in almost every meaningful journey when your mind begins to turn against the direction you once chose. Not because the path is wrong, not because you are incapable, but because continuing has become uncomfortable. At first you were motivated. You could see the future clearly. You could imagine the person you wanted to become. You could feel the excitement of beginning again. But beginnings are easy. The real test comes later. When progress becomes difficult to see, when nobody notices your effort, when the excitement disappears, when you wake up and realize that the life you want is still far away. That is when the mind begins to speak. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe you're wasting your time. Maybe you're not strong enough. Maybe you should stop. And because these thoughts come from inside your own mind, you assume they must be telling you the truth. But a thought is not the truth. A feeling is not a command. And the desire to quit is not always a sign that you should quit. Sometimes it is simply the mind trying to escape discomfort. Your mind was designed to protect you. It prefers what is familiar. It prefers what is predictable. It prefers the path that requires the least uncertainty, the least pain, and the least resistance. But growth does not happen there. Every meaningful transformation eventually brings you to a place where the old version of you wants to turn back. And this is where discipline begins. Discipline is not forcing yourself to suffer endlessly. It is learning to remain steady when temporary emotions try to make permanent decisions for you. It is the ability to hear the voice that says, "Stop," and calmly ask, "Is stopping really what I want? Or am I simply tired?" This audiobook is about that moment, the moment between the thought of giving up and the decision to continue. Because your life is shaped by what you do inside that small space. You do not need to control every thought that enters your mind. You do not need to feel motivated every morning. You do not need to become fearless. You only need to understand one thing. Your mind can suggest that you stop, but you are still the one who decides. And perhaps the strength you have been searching for is not the ability to feel powerful all the time. Perhaps real strength is quieter than that. Perhaps it is simply the discipline to keep going. One more morning, one more attempt, one more small promise kept, one more step. Especially when nobody is watching. Especially when nothing seems to be changing. Especially when your own mind is telling you that it would be easier to walk away. So as you listen, you do not need to force yourself to change immediately. Just listen. Observe your mind. Notice the thoughts that have been controlling your decisions. Notice the moments when discomfort becomes an excuse. Notice how often you have confused exhaustion with failure. And slowly, you may begin to understand something. You were never required to believe every thought you think. You are only required to choose which thoughts deserve your obedience. This is where your discipline begins. This is where you take your mind back. And this is where you learn to keep going. Chapter 1. Your mind will always look for an exit. The mind is remarkably good at creating reasons to stop. It rarely says, "I am afraid of discomfort." Instead, it says, "This doesn't make sense anymore." It rarely says, "I am afraid of failing." Instead, it says, "Maybe this isn't meant for me." It rarely admits that patience has become difficult. Instead, it creates an argument that makes quitting sound intelligent. This is one of the most important things you can learn about yourself. The mind does not always present fear as fear. Sometimes fear sounds logical. Sometimes avoidance sounds like wisdom. Sometimes giving up feels like relief. And relief can easily be mistaken for the right decision. Imagine that you have been working towards something for months. Perhaps you are building a new habit, changing your body, learning a skill, building a business, trying to heal, trying to become emotionally stronger. At first, progress gives you energy. Then the progress slows. The work becomes repetitive. And one day you feel nothing, no excitement, no inspiration, no visible reward. Your mind immediately begins searching for an exit. This is normal, but normal does not mean you must obey it. The Stoics understood that there is a difference between what happens inside us and what we choose to do about it. A thought may appear, an emotion may rise, an impulse may demand your attention, but between the impulse and your action, there is a space. That space is where self-control lives. You may feel like quitting without quitting. You may feel discouraged without abandoning the path. You may doubt yourself and still take the next step. This is one of the quietest forms of strength. You do not have to defeat the thought. You do not have to argue with it. You do not even have to make it disappear. You can simply notice it. There is the thought that I should quit. There is the feeling that this is too difficult. There is the fear that none of this will work. Notice the language. You are not saying, I must quit. You are saying, my mind is producing the thought of quitting. That small distance changes everything, because now you are observing the thought instead of becoming the thought. You are no longer trapped inside the storm. You are watching the storm, and storms pass. This is why emotional discipline is not emotional suppression. You are not trying to become a machine. You are learning not to surrender your direction every time your internal weather changes. Some days your mind will cooperate with you. Some days it will not. Your responsibility is not to control the weather. Your responsibility is to keep your hands on the wheel. Remember this. The mind often wants immediate relief. Your deeper self wants meaningful progress. These two desires will frequently conflict. When you are tired, relief says stop. When you are afraid, relief says hide. When progress is slow, relief says choose something easier. But the life you want may require you to tolerate the temporary discomfort of not escaping, not forever, just for this moment. You do not need to promise yourself that you will never struggle again. You only need to stop making permanent decisions from temporary states of mind. If you are exhausted, rest. If you are confused, reflect. If the strategy is failing, change the strategy. But do not automatically abandon the destination simply because today's journey feels difficult. Rest is not quitting. Adjustment is not quitting. Moving slowly is not quitting. Starting again is not quitting. Sometimes discipline means pushing forward. Sometimes discipline means recovering so that you can continue. The goal is not endless force. The goal is continuity, because a person who knows how to continue will eventually travel farther than a person who only knows how to begin. So the next time your mind searches for an exit, do not panic. Do not judge yourself. Do not immediately obey. Observe. Wait. Ask yourself, do I truly need to stop, or do I simply need to recover? That question may save you from abandoning something your future self would have been grateful you continued. Chapter 2. You do not have to believe every thought. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that every thought deserves attention. It does not. The mind produces thousands of thoughts. Some are useful, some are protective, Some are creative, and some are simply noise. Yet when a negative thought appears repeatedly, repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity begins to feel like truth. You think, I'm falling behind, I'm not disciplined enough, other people are doing better, I always fail, I will probably quit again. And because you have heard these thoughts many times before, they arrive with authority, but repetition is not evidence. A thought can be familiar and still be false. A fear can feel convincing and still be inaccurate. Your mind can predict failure without knowing the future. This is where mental discipline becomes essential. Mental discipline does not mean creating positive thoughts all day. It means refusing to give every thought equal power. Think of your mind as a room with many voices. Some voices are afraid, some are impatient, some are wounded by the past, some are trying to protect you from disappointment. And somewhere beneath all that noise is another voice, quieter, slower, less dramatic. The voice that remembers why you started. The voice that understands that difficult does not mean impossible. The voice that says, not today. We are not giving up today. You do not need that voice to shout. You only need to listen. This is the discipline of controlling your mind, not through violence, not through constant resistance, but through selection. You choose what receives your attention. You choose what becomes action. You choose which thoughts are allowed to shape your future. A thought may enter without permission, but it cannot become your direction without your participation. That is your power. And every time you practice this, the distance between thought and action becomes wider. You become less reactive, more observant, more deliberate. You begin to realize that the mind is a tool, a powerful tool, but it was never meant to become your master. Chapter 3. Motivation was never supposed to carry you. Motivation is beautiful, but motivation is temporary. It visits, it leaves. It rises when the future feels exciting and disappears when the work becomes repetitive. This is why people often misunderstand themselves. They begin something while motivated, then motivation fades, and they interpret the fading emotion as a fading commitment. But the two are not the same. You can lose motivation without losing your reason. You can feel uninspired and still remain committed. This is where discipline becomes more important than emotion. Discipline says, I do not need to feel ready to take one step. I do not need to feel powerful to keep one promise. I do not need to see the entire road to continue walking. You have a choice. You can build a life that depends on how you feel. Or you can build a life around what you have decided matters. One will constantly change. The other can become your foundation. Chapter 4. The discipline of the next small step. When the mind becomes overwhelmed, it thinks too far ahead. It imagines the entire journey. Every difficulty, every sacrifice, every possibility of failure. And suddenly, one small action feels impossibly heavy. So reduce the distance. Do not carry tomorrow, do not carry next year, carry the next step. Read one page, write one paragraph, walk for 10 minutes, finish one task, keep one promise. You do not climb a mountain in one movement. You climb it by repeatedly placing one foot above the other. Your life changes in the same way. The mind wants dramatic transformation. Discipline respects repetition, and repetition, given enough time, becomes identity. Chapter 5. Stop using your past as a prediction. Perhaps you have quit before, perhaps many times. That history can become dangerous when the mind turns it into identity. I always give up. Be careful with that sentence. You are turning previous behavior into a permanent definition. The past can explain your patterns. It does not have to dictate your future. You are allowed to behave differently today, even if yesterday looked exactly like every day before it. Change begins the first time you interrupt the familiar response, the first time you normally quit, but continue, the first time you normally avoid, but stay, the first time you normally break your promise, but keep it. Nobody else may notice, but your nervous system notices, your identity notices, and slowly you begin collecting evidence that you are capable of becoming someone different. Chapter 6. Learn to rest without abandoning yourself. There is a form of discipline that many people never learn, the discipline of rest. They believe there are only two choices, push harder or quit, but there is a third choice. Pause without abandoning the path. You can be tired and still committed. You can slow down and still be moving forward. You can recover without surrendering your future. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, I will continue, but not by destroying myself. This matters because sustainable discipline is not punishment. It is partnership with your future self. The goal is not to prove how much pain you can tolerate. The goal is to remain in the journey long enough to become who the journey is shaping you to be. Chapter 7. Keep promises. Small enough to keep self-trust is built quietly. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you create evidence. Every time you repeatedly make impossible promises and abandon them, you create different evidence. This is why small commitments matter. Do not promise perfection. Promise consistency. Do not say, I will completely change my life tomorrow. Say, tomorrow I will show up. That is enough. One action, one promise, one piece of evidence. Then repeat. Confidence does not always come before action. Often, confidence is the memory of promises you kept. Chapter 8. The days that feel pointless matter most. There will be days when nothing seems to happen. You work, you practice, you continue, and there is no visible reward. These days are dangerous because the mind measures progress only through what it can see. But much of growth happens invisibly. Roots grow before branches appear. Skills develop before results become obvious. Character strengthens before life gives you an opportunity to demonstrate it. Do not underestimate quiet days, the days when nobody applauds you, the days when motivation is absent, the days when you wonder whether your effort matters. These are often the days when discipline is being built most deeply. Anyone can continue when progress is obvious.
The person you are becoming is shaped by whether you continue when progress is silent. Dear for Nike Fighter, her fathers, her friend ever river.
Chapter 9. Become the person who returns you will not always be consistent. There will be interruptions, bad weeks, mistakes, unexpected events, moments when you fall back into an old pattern. Do not turn one interruption into an identity. The goal is not to become someone who never falls. Become someone who returns. Return to the habit. Return to the work. Return to yourself. Again and again. There is extraordinary power in becoming difficult to permanently discourage. Life may interrupt you, but it cannot finish the story unless you decide the story is finished. Chapter 10. Keep going, but differently. Persistence does not mean repeating what does not work forever. Sometimes continuing requires change, a different strategy, a different pace, a different environment, a different expectation. The destination may remain. The path may change. This is wisdom. Do not confuse stubbornness with discipline. Control your mind enough to remain committed, but remain flexible enough to learn. You are not here to prove that your first plan was perfect. You are here to keep moving toward what matters. Chapter 11. Your quiet discipline is changing you eventually. Something begins to happen. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. You simply notice that the voice telling you to quit is no longer as powerful as it once was. The thought still appears, but now you recognize it. You have heard it before, and you have continued before. This changes your relationship with yourself. You stop asking, "Can I trust myself?" because your behavior has already answered. You stayed, you returned, you continued, you kept going when nobody was watching. And that quiet evidence becomes something stronger than motivation. It becomes identity. You are becoming someone who does not surrender easily. Chapter 12. Just don't quit today. You do not need to know whether you can continue for another year. That question is too heavy. You do not need to promise that you will never doubt yourself again. You will. You do not need to guarantee that the road will become easier. It may not. You only need to make one decision. Do not quit today. Today, take the next step. Today, keep one promise. Today, return one more time. Tomorrow will ask its own questions. You do not need to answer them yet. This moment is enough. Your mind may become tired. Let it rest. Your mind may become afraid. Let it be afraid. Your mind may tell you that you are moving too slowly. Let it speak. But remember, you are the one who chooses the direction. You are not every thought that passes through your mind. You are not every emotion that rises inside you. You are not your worst day. You are not the promises you once failed to keep. You are the person making the next decision. And the next decision can be different. Perhaps you do not need more motivation. Perhaps you do not need another dramatic beginning. Perhaps you only need to stop abandoning yourself when the journey becomes quiet. Keep going, slowly if necessary. Rest when you need to. Change your strategy when wisdom asks you to. Begin again when you fall, but do not confuse a difficult chapter with the end of your story. There is still more ahead of you. More strength you have not discovered. More discipline you have not practiced. More versions of yourself you have not met. And you will never meet them if you always obey the first thought that tells you to stop. So when that thought comes again, notice it. Listen to it if you must. But remember that listening is not obeying. Take a breath. Look at the road in front of you. Not the entire road, just the next step. And when you are ready, take it. That is enough. That has always been enough. Control your mind. Protect your direction. And keep going.